best part of the day. It's never better than when you have the opportunity to talk to a peer, a client, and a successful, and hear some of what's made the journey successful. So let me tell you a little bit about Dawn before we bring her up. And Dawn has a long and extensive bio, and I gave her the heads up this morning that I did some cutting just in the interest of time. But Dawn Zier is President and Chief Executive Officer of Nutrisystem. Since taking the helm in late 2012, Dawn has embarked on an ambitious 4-point turnaround plan for Nutrisystem. This encompasses bringing in a new management team, some of whom are here today, enhancing the company's integrated e-commerce marketing capabilities, and introducing several new product lines and food selections, a breakthrough digital weight loss tool called Numi, which you should check out if you haven't already, and industry-first retail offerings. Her mission in 2013 was to fix it fast. 2014 and beyond is about innovation and growth. She's also put in place a facts-based culture that drives a focus on priorities, accountability, customer centricity, and teamwork. Under Dawn's leadership, the stock has more than doubled. In 2013, her performance was ranked in the top 15% of all NASDAQ CEOs. Dawn, this is the most interesting part since she's here at Google, most interesting part for me. Dawn received a master's in electrical engineering and computer science, as well as an MBA at MIT. She's a frequent guest on news networks including CBS, CNBC, Bloomberg TV, Fox Business News, and MarketWatch Radio. Dawn's leadership was recently recognized by Philadelphia Smart CEO with a 2014 Bravo Award. Additionally, she's being honored as Target Marketing's 2014 Direct Marketer of the Year and is a 2014 winner of the Direct Marketing Club of New York's Silver Apple Award, which she'll actually receive tonight. So please join me in welcoming Dawn Zier. I think these chairs are for us, but they're very cozy. Let's use, yeah. Can't have a fireside chat without a fire. We can use the middle chair as a table. How's that? All right. So, oh, do we have a microphone for you? Let me get a microphone. Does this work? Great.
Houston?
All right. So first of all, thanks for being here.
Thanks.
And congratulations on your award.
Thank you.
Awards. Tell us about Nutrisystem, the history of the company, and what the situation was when you walked in on your first day in 2012.
Okay, well, I think everyone knows Nutrisystem is a weight management company. We've been in business for a little over 40 years, a direct-to-consumer business that recently expanded to the retail channel. And today we're doing well, but when I came in November of 2012, things weren't quite so rosy. When I was tapped to head Nutrisystem, the company had suffered 5 years of revenue declines, 5-year profit declines. The stock had gone from a high in 2007 of 75 down to 7, and things weren't great. The company had announced in April of 2012 that their CEO was leaving, and they didn't bring in a new CEO until November. So that led to a lot of time when the company was actually in a state of angst. And it was also a time when you would think other leaders within the company who had the ability to do so would step up, but the whole culture was so beaten up that people were taking more of a wait-and-see attitude. Let's see what the new person's going to do. I have 1 foot in, I'm not sure I want to be here, and really the whole culture was a mess. We had a one-size-fits-all approach to marketing. We didn't look at it from a customer perspective. We said, we have one product, now take it. Not the best way to market or to engage customers, as we've talked about a little bit today. And we had a great resource. So our building, we have 3 floors in Fort Washington, Pennsylvania, and our second floor is our contact center. So we have our customer service reps, our sales reps, we have our counselors, we have our nutritionists, our dietitians. Everybody's on that floor, and marketing's on the 3rd floor. And you think it was the Berlin Wall between the 2 floors. Nobody got together and talked, and that really is your front line of defense. And we weren't really activating it. And we also had a team that, while they didn't like to lose, accepted loss. So if you went into diet season and you lost, it was like, okay, kind of thought we would. So really, Really not a great place to be. So fast forward to today, we have a highly engaged leadership team. Morale is dramatically improved, and we know that because we've done employee surveys. We have a we can win attitude, which it's amazing, and I think one of the important things you really have to do is celebrate the little wins along the way, even if they're not the big wins. You have to celebrate the wins. It gets the company moving and thinking in the right direction. People are much more personally invested, and the stock is up, has more than doubled, as you mentioned. So that's what I walked into.
Okay, so definitely want to hear more about how you've organized or reorganized today. But before we get there, you know, your background is interesting. You're an MIT-trained engineer, very process-oriented, I would imagine. So how did you assess the business when you arrived on day one? What was your process, and how did you approach that?
Well, I wanted numbers, I wanted data, I wanted facts, and but the first thing I did before I actually dug into the business, because I'm a big believer in mentors and really having people getting outside counsel along the way. I had a couple of strong mentors as I was going into Nutrisystem, and two of them told me, who had been through a CEO experience before, and told me the first thing you need to do your 90 days is make sure you get your right team in place. And be bold, don't be sorry. Make the tough moves and do it fast, and just remember that you can't do everything yourself, and your success or your failure is going to be tied to who you bring in, who you exit, who you build as your team over the next 90 days. And the other thing I was very cognizant of, because I had lived through, I spent a lot of time at Reader's Digest. I was there for 20 years, and the last 5 years at Reader's, we went through 4 different CEOs. Now, the good thing about that is if you can survive that, you're really adaptive to change. And actually, it was a great experience for me. But I had the firsthand experience of seeing how multiple CEOs came in and changed an organization, and got to see firsthand, kind of like that, really didn't like that, and kind of got to build my own thought process around it. And one of the things that was very important to me was to make sure, because I'd seen it done both correctly and in my mind incorrectly, was to make sure that we did not build an us versus them culture. A newcomers, you know, bringing the management team, everybody else out, and the company feels like, oh, here's the new CEO and her or his team, and the rest of us are out. So in my mind, it was very important that we built a blended team, and the team ended up being some new people that we brought into the organization, some star players who were already there, who we elevated or kept on the management team. And then we actually went back to people who had been with Nutrisystem when the company was doing very well, a $75 stock, and brought them back into the organization. So it was a very disciplined approach, but one of the things I was really wanted to make sure of is that we didn't have that us versus them culture. We were also looking for people, because you know, when you're a company that's going like this, you need to have a streamlined management team. You don't have the luxury of having all these, you know, talking heads at the top, and, you know, having everybody else do the work. So really was looking for roll it up your sleeves sort of managers, not yes people. I have a pretty strong personality, as everybody who knows me would attest to. And what I wanted to make sure of is that the team I brought in felt comfortable challenging me, felt comfortable that it was safe to say, no, we don't agree, and we could have the healthy debate around that. You know, yes, people really, you know, that's not what we're looking for. We had too much hard work to do. So that's kind of what we looked at, and we did an honest assessment of our team. We looked at the gaps. We looked at the strengths that I brought into the picture, the weaknesses that I needed to make sure that I covered, because not everybody's, you know, none of us are good at everything, and looked at the gaps within the organization.
So can you talk a little bit more about the actual process for doing that assessment? So you talked a lot about your people. Would love to hear more about that. And then also, how did you assess your partners? How did you assess the other parts of the organization?
Sure. Well, one of the things we did was we spent a lot of time listening, and I think it's dangerous when new people come into the organization and have all the ideas but don't take the time to listen and speak, listen to what the people are saying. So made sure that we went around, we had the round table, skip level conversations, and really tried to get a feel of what was going on in the organization, really understand the pulse. And as I said, you know, it was a company that was pretty demoralized, and that came across loud and clear. and really needed to work hard to gain respect and trust. We did an employee survey, so I came in on November 15th, and by the end of November we had an employee survey out to kind of gauge the pulse of the organization and to have a starting point. And that was really helpful, and I encourage everybody, no matter what the size of the company. I know some of my peers do employee surveys, and I think that it's a great tool because it really lets you know your strengths as well as your weaknesses. And what we found out was that there was a lack of accountability within the organization, a lot of this, a lack of confidence in leadership, didn't trust them, silos throughout the organization, which really disenablers to getting anything done. People weren't sure of the future prospects, so again, 1 foot in, 1 foot out the door, and a lot of bottlenecks. So a lot of important activity going through one thing, and it kind of got stuck in the process. We did do a deep dive on business fundamentals, so we did the competitive SWOT. Looked at our competition, looked at, okay, what are table stakes for being in the weight management space? What are we doing well? What are our competitors doing well? And really made sure it wasn't a pat on the back activity where we said, oh, look how good we are here and there. It was really, look how bad we are over there. And really made sure that we understood what our vulnerabilities were. And I think that's more important. Always easy to pat yourselves on the back than really, take an honest look at yourself. We did map out a customer journey. I actually brought in a consultant to map out the customer journey process for us. That wasn't in place. I then hired her as my CMO, and I'm never quite sure if I got the finished product. But that was something we did very early on, and it was important because there are multiple ways that you talk to customers. And we tracked them from when we acquired them, but then found out that very quickly we didn't talk to them much once we had them. So how do we retain, how do we reactivate? So we've done a lot of work at that. Looked at the marketing fundamentals of the business because, we are a weight management company, but also direct marketing company. Looked at our pricing, looked at all the key, the KPIs to see where we were doing and where we could improve. Really analyzed our message to customers because at the end, you're only as successful as your customers say you are, and how they vote with you with their dollars, and understood that the way we were talking to them was not very empathetic for such an emotional issue as weight loss. And then we studied the product and also quickly realized, again, we were having one product and we were pretty much shoving it down people's throat and saying, this is it, take it or leave it. And again, that's not the best way to operate in today's world.
That's great. So, I want to stick on the theme of the customer decision journey and customer centricity for a second. And also go back to what you talked about before, which is the actual reorganization that you've done, right? So can you talk a little bit about how you've reorganized the company and what role that customer decision journey work played in your reorganization?
Sure. So I think the most important role in my company is product development, but also the chief marketing officer role. And having come in as a marketer, and a very passionate marketer, what I wanted to make sure of is that the person I brought in, again, this is kind of knowing, I knew that if I felt there was weakness in marketing, I would become the CMO. And I couldn't become the CMO because I needed to be CEO. So that was something I was very aware of going in. So instead of saying, I'm really strong in this area, my CMO, as long as he or she's okay, that's good enough. I'm like, I need a CMO that can basically, really kind of that we can channel each other almost. And, so that was my most critical move. And I went in, I felt that I really needed to bring in someone that I already knew in the space, someone that I felt was trained the way that I was trained. And again, cognizant of not bringing in all people from my prior world, but that was the most important hire I made, and I made sure that I brought in somebody that was very strong, and again, somebody that would not hesitate, and trust me, she does not, to tell me, I don't agree with you, I think you should do it this way, or, okay, yeah, let's talk about it, and I think that's important. The other was the CFO, because as a public company, and I was coming in without I had some public company experience, but not at the level. And the board had actually felt that we should bring in a public company CFO, and I thought, I'm not sure, because I really want to bring in somebody that's not doing the public company CFO thing, always, yes, it's important to manage the street, but what I needed even more immediately was a CFO that was going to roll up his sleeves and deep dive into the business and really understand the numbers and how we can move the business going forward. So that was a critical hire, and I think it was the right decision because we've been obviously managing both the street as well as the business, but really looking for roll it up your sleeves sort of people. And so those were the top two players we brought in. When we brought in the CMO, we also being an e-tailer, the most important role there's a lot of different important roles within marketing, but one of the important roles within marketing was the whole e-commerce stream, and we brought in a power hitter from, again, outside the industry, nobody that we knew. We did a search for that, but brought in a power hitter to run e-commerce, recognizing that the CMO she needed a strong number two over there.
And that was a newly created position, right? Or was there somebody in that role before?
There was nobody there when I got there. It had been there in the past, and I think that was one of the things that fell by the wayside as the company was going down. You really need leaders in your areas where you're going to grow. The other thing that was a red flag for me was human resources. So if people capital is the most important thing, because ultimately it's your culture and your people being able to do things that makes you successful, I believe strongly that the human resources leader should report into the CEO, but at the company, the person was reporting into the CFO, which is always a red flag for me. It kind of makes a statement on how you, as the top leader, really value people. So we did change that. The other thing, interesting, we had an acquisition mindset. So when we looked at how we're spending our time and when we pulsed the marketing department, 90% of the time was spent on acquisition, which again, you're spending a lot of money to bring in new customers, and if you spend more time and effort into keeping them, that's a good thing. But everybody's effort was around acquiring new customers, and particularly acquiring new customers during the first 3 months of the year. So we looked at that and we restructured the organization. We brought in a vice president of customer experience to really manage from when we brought the customers in to the whole process throughout the journey, which I believe was a smart decision. We also brought in, Rebecca was talking about data scientists or data and analytics. We're building out our data scientist department, which I personally love. I like that. And that's having a lot of value as well. And we didn't have a PR department, so we brought in we brought in our PR, which is important for a company that has a lot of messages to share around an important issue.
So you're 2 years in. What have you learned? And is there anything that you would do differently if you had to do it all over again?
Well, I learned a lot. I think it's really important to set the culture. So I think when you come into a company, and if you don't define the culture is going to define you. So we were very deliberate. We're a marketing company, and in this digital age and in a direct world where you have one-on-one customer relationships, there's a lot of data. So you should be able to have pretty fact-based conversations. And what I found is, when we deep dived, when we were assessing, when we deep dived on the company, a lot of people were giving comments, but they were broad stroke comments, and when you dug a little deeper, they weren't really fact-based. So what we tried to do is really set the culture from the top and what we were looking for, and establish what we call a facts-based culture, which is that just the facts. We're willing to talk to you about anything, but make sure you come to us with the facts behind the discussion. Otherwise, no time, time's up. The other was we also made sure, because we wanted a simple message that the whole company could resonate behind, and based on the employee survey results, we said, okay, just the facts, but then facts stands for being focused, because in a turnaround situation, you'll die if you have too many priorities, so you really have to be focused on the priorities. We said we were going to hold people accountable. And that sounds obvious, but again, at the company, there was nobody in charge of certain tasks. So if something went wrong, it was very easy to say, well, it's his fault, it's her fault, because there was no clear owner. So we really went through that process of ownership, and also changed our performance culture, which I think is important. We were a company that if the company performed well, let's say there's bonuses, company performed well, everybody got 100% of the bonus. It wasn't like, you're a superstar, you get 150. You not so good, and I don't know you, I'm only teasing. You get
Alyssa's very good.
You get 70. Everybody got 100, and I said, it can't work that way, because if everybody is average, you're not going to win in this world, and we have to strive to be awesome. So really started differentiating, and that was uncomfortable. That we just did that last year. Now the good news is, good news, bad news, we hadn't awarded bonuses for 3 years. So, changing at that point was pretty good, because people were happy to just get something. But we really made sure that we differentiated. Also, the contact center. So really began to focus more on the customer journey and customer centricity, and started making sure that marketing and the contact center were talking on a regular basis, and that the contact center was giving us updates and had regular listening sessions with our customers, and started really tracking those customer metrics, which are critical. So a lot of stuff on that front. What would I do differently today? I thought I moved pretty fast. I think I would have moved even faster on some of the talent. I think that you can prioritize, and we think we did a pretty good job setting priorities, but it's very easy to get enamored with the next idea and say, oh, well, we'll just let's layer that on too. So, my thought process of having, these are the 5 priorities, probably my team would say, well, she really added 5 more throughout the year. But I think, you need to have that flexibility, but I think really being rigorous about understanding what's important and what are the key levers, and then understanding how you're going to allocate the team's time. So setting aside time for, really trying to change that mandate from acquisition only to full journey. I would have done that faster and just really started driving that this year.
So I have more questions for us if the audience is quiet, but if anybody has questions for Dawn, all right. Oh, a few. Okay. Can we start with the guest?
You want to use it yet. Okay. So I'm going to talk a lot. Sure. Can you explain to me how you work internally to gauge success? How do you talk about it?
I think that's a thank you, and I think that's a great question, because we are most happy when people succeed, and I get this question a lot by investors. Actually, you really don't want people to succeed, do you? But we really do, because especially and appropriate today having the conversation, because in a world that is so socially oriented, our biggest marketing tool, and it's not today, but it should be bigger than it is and will increasingly become more important, is our social stream and having these brand ambassadors and brand advocates out there. So we really do want people to succeed, because as we heard, it's not the doctor that people are going to anymore. It's hey, what works for us is, hey, you look great. What did you do? Oh, I did Nutrisystem, or I did MetaFast, or I did Weight Watchers. That is the best endorsement any of us can get, because then it's like, wow, she looks great. I'm going to try that. And so this success factor, and then the word of mouth and the positivity from that is what works for us, because if you're successful, you will probably bring in 5 to 10 more people for us. I have an example here, Steve. How many people did you bring in before we hired you? I mean, I'm sorry for getting personal here, but Steve and his wife had gone on the program, and I swear his wife was working for us, because every day our contact center got calls, leads from, she had a whole work program going, it seemed. So this whole word of mouth thing is really important. And then unfortunately, because weight loss is difficult and people who struggle with it do tend to cycle through and have good periods and bad periods, a good Yeah, about 30% of our revenues are from people who have been on the program in the past, and that's important too because you need to have a good experience. So otherwise, if they're not successful, they won't come back. So success is very important, even though a little counterintuitive from what you think. Mike.
I just wanted to congratulate
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. It means a lot with the respect I have for you. I appreciate that.
Brian?
I did use that. First time I ever used it, but it seemed appropriate. Yeah. I think the silo breakdown between the contact center was deliberate. So we had many meetings. We mandated it. We actually put it in people's performance. So I think if you want action, if you want people to do something, you really need to measure it. And we're not perfect yet. We certainly still have silos within the organization. A lot of it came down to communication and clear accountabilities. So that's sort of how we did it. And I would say, we took the employee survey now a year late. We've now had 2 employee surveys, and we've seen that silo mentality break down with each employee survey. But it's not easy. And I find, again, we have in our bonus structure, 20% of people's bonus is tied to is acting in step with the fact-based culture, which says if you're a blocker, if you're not a team player, you may be the best superstar we have, but if you're individual and not for the team, that's going to hurt you as well. So we do reward that way.
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. I think that's how we make our money, right? So we're an e-tailer. So most of our we do TV advertising. Everything we do is around the marketing, and we sell things in a one-to-one relationship. We've just branched into retail, but 90+% of our revenues come from selling a continuity-based product to a customer with a specific need. And when I look at our core competencies, it's around being able to distribute nationally a product. It doesn't have to be weight loss, but that's one of our core competencies. Being able to our marketing, so being able to reach customers and resonate with messaging and all of that, and then our ability to innovate and come up with new products, plus our brand. But I find that it was interesting if you think of weight loss, which is a pretty tough space to be in, actually. It's a pretty volatile, cyclical, it's a tough business. That if we think of ourselves as a marketing company and really focused on when the company was successful, they were being run as much more of a direct marketing company than a product brand company. And as we kind of shift and try to balance that, we've been able to have success by focusing on those marketing fundamentals. I think it allows you to think more broadly when you think from we can innovate different products that we can market that make sense for our customer set, but it allows you to just think about it through a different lens.
Have you used celebrity endorsers?
Yes.
They work as well in the digital media as they do in traditional broadcast?
I think, it's interesting you say that, because I think one of the issues that we're addressing, and one of the reasons we brought a data scientist in for us, is to really understand attribution. So we do a lot of TV advertising. We have a lot of PR, and we think there's a place for our celebrities. They work well on TV. They work very well in PR. You get the red carpet appearances, things like that. But our strategy is a blend around celebrity and real people. And digitally we can make use of both. I think socially celebrities are kind of cool to be able to use, but ultimately it comes down with connecting with your customers. So any celebrity you use really has to be authentic and connect with your customers. And we do it in a balanced way. I would say we're not overly celebrity driven. Those celebrities are part of our marketing.
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't even say we're at the big win place yet. It's a process, and certainly, you know, if I'm not one to declare victory because there's still a lot of work to do, and you're only as good as your last quarter, so in this world. But celebrating wins was actually very simple for us because the company had such a beat-up attitude. We would celebrate absolutely anything. So we weren't really we weren't really strict on the celebrating the wins part. We had an employee survey. If we got to a 90% participation, we had ice cream. You know, don't tell anyone it's a weight loss company, but yes, we had ice cream. We also mobilized the company through some charity work. So we're a big sponsor of the American Diabetes Association, and we did a lot of building team morale through actually all centralizing around that cause, and that was very rewarding to see the company come together that way. If we saw a key metric move in the right direction, we'd have a party. You know, and so we really just tried to make it less of a, you know, we feel like we're losing atmosphere and begin to celebrate some of the small wins, which over time then became more meaningful wins. But, you know, we tried to just get people out of the funk they were in, and it was a little funky. Oh, yes, we did. Yes, thank you for bringing that up. So we have town halls. We have town halls on a quarterly basis, usually after our earnings, and we would call out people who we felt went above and beyond at the town hall, and give them a token gift. It was you know, $100 Amex card or a $50 Amex card, and thank them publicly. So that was an important part of it too, making people feel like they mattered. Definitely.
Other questions? Okay. So can you talk about what in your background sort of prepared you for this role, and maybe what gaps you had to fill when you joined?
I'm still learning, and I think what I love about my job is I'm learning every day. So my gap definitely was that I didn't have public company experience at the most senior level. So I hadn't really interacted with investors, had interacted with PE a little bit, but hadn't really interacted with the street as a speaker or along those lines. So becoming actually one of the faces of a company, was something that I had to make sure that I did well. Fortunately, I'm the type of person that if someone expresses doubt that I can't do something, I will actually double down on that. So it was pointed out, hey, you know, we think you're great. This is one of the things we're a little worried about. And I'm like, oh, you don't have to worry. So kind of made sure I got coaching, and really, again, you know, taking advantage, being aware of where your deficit might be. And it's one of the more interesting parts of my job, and something I actually like on most days. A lot of people asked me when I came in and when we were meeting with the investors, like, why the heck are you here? You know, not quite like that, but you came from a publishing company, you're running a weight loss company, why'd they pick you? And I said, I don't know. But I think what it really was the understanding of the customer. And because if you don't understand the customer and the customer journey and aren't a insight, deep dive sort of person, you're not going to win in this day and age. And it was all about, you know, coming from Reader's Digest, which is a publishing company and certainly has suffered its share of issues. But when I was trained there during the training days, it was all about marketing. It was all about data, big data, and how to use that. And it was all about the customer. And a lot of the metrics we use at Nutrisystem were ones that Reader's similar, a little different application, but similar to what Reader's Digest was doing. So from that point of view, it was a very logical move. From the data analytics point of view, a very logical move. And then just, you know, someone that has passion around the brand and understands the customer was extremely important. So.
Great. Another chance for questions? Okay. Talk a little bit about what companies or people or organizations inspire you. I mean, who do you look to and say they're doing a great job?
I look at Google. No, seriously. Yeah. No,
the other parts of Google, though, not.
No, seriously, I look at people who are winning in digital. So I seriously do look at Google and what they're doing and how, you know, the company's captured market share and continues to grow and come out with innovation. I spend a lot of time thinking and looking at Amazon, and one of the things that Jeff Bezos said, not to me, but said in a paper once, was that at every meeting you have your round table of the management team, and this seat would always be empty because this is the seat that the customer is sitting in. And that really connected with me and resonated. And you know, so I try to take that approach in terms of when we're having meetings and talking about what's happening. I'm not a big case study person, probably because I went to MIT and not Harvard. But I do obviously look at a lot of companies, but I'm much more a one-on-one. So I look at people and look at examples. I know the type of person I want in my organization. And it comes down to passion. So what I really look for and study are people who've had passion and have won. And there are a lot of people out there just from everyday walks of life, and they certainly inspire me. And I look at their things. I like looking at people when I think about who I want to bring into the organization. I like looking at people who have had to persevere, who have had to deal with real things in their real lives. It's not that I interview and say, tell me the personally most difficult thing you've ever had to do and all the details, but you can tell when you talk to people that actually have had to earn it, have had to earn their way and just didn't get it handed to them. And I really put a lot of admiration into that and find that translates into a real incredible work ethic.
That's great. Well, you've built a phenomenal team, and you're having great success in your turnaround plan, so congratulations there. Are there any last call for questions before we break for lunch, which I think I'm standing in the way of, or Brian is going to stand in the way of that? Thank you very much for joining us and for sharing your success.
Thanks.
Appreciate
Pleasure.
Thank you, Dawn, for being so gracious and generous in your transparency. That was wonderful. All right, I have another prize, and I have to find my questions. That was really great, Dawn. Thank you. All right, within 1%. So there's only like 100 different answers here. It's not like the billions thing. Within 1%, what percent of Google searches in any given day are new searches? 60? Okay, no, lower. Higher. 15, who said it first? Okay, ooh, good prize. Between 16 and 20% of Google searches in any given day are new searches. So again, we talk about growth. More people to mobile, more people, Internet of Things, new and different searches that we never knew existed before that might be relevant to our category that we want to capture. You get a Samsung Gear wearable device. That is a nice prize. You are welcome. So I want to thank everybody for their time and attention today. I really especially like to thank Dawn for really, like I said, the generosity and transparency and graciousness. I want to thank our partners from McKinsey for joining us for a first of a kind. I know that several of you have time set up either with someone from McKinsey or someone from Google upstairs. If you don't, we still have lunch upstairs for everybody here if you'd like it. And it's not a good day to go out to the street right now. So if you're looking for a way to spend, an hour or two more warm and dry and fed, we invite you all to stay here for a little bit. Just remember, you got to latch yourself onto a Googler. That's what we call ourselves, Googlers.